And we are back for another game of the Seto Akiyama semifinals, which I have already said I think is my pick for match of the tournament. We see Seto with a similar strategy to what he played last game, but he has switched up where he has the AA corner. So he has found a strategy he likes, have two corners for a square, one of which is a rare, the other of which is a powerful recapturer that has high numbers facing out, such that if your opponent plays around the rare and you need to hold on to that card to recapture it, that card will have very powerful impact whenever it lands because it can recapture, but it is using up none of its potential power facing towards them. Seto has gone for a more tri-directional hand than last game, and Akiyama has really committed to a tri-directional hand while making sure to have double numbers in every direction so that Seto's rare abusing strategies ideally don't hurt him as much. Seto goes for the rare starter again. Last game, I think Seto was probably the one looking for advantage, but Akiyama found a solid way to neutralize it. I would expect first turn to have some advantage here, and I do think these rare strategies are very reasonable. Rare starters, I talked a bit about some kind of solver analysis I did early in the return of hand matrices, and one thing it said was rare starters are quite dangerous, and hands built around them do well on first turn. They are a very viable way to go, and this looks pretty logical, and I think Seto's sweepers are pretty decent. If you get to keep your 339A for final turn, that's really likely to do work. You'll notice Akiyama has very few numbers that can't take. And if you're not able to keep, and if it gets resolved early, your 988s might be very good sweepers for late. So I would think this is a position Akiyama has to be pretty careful. And I think he adjusted to make sure he had the prior AA covered while making it likely he would have other things like it covered, but I'm not sure how prepared his hand is to meet this. If we were going to follow a similar track as the last game, which may be a decent idea for him, then he would play 8, 8, 2, 9, and 6. Seto would very likely recapture in 2. And now Akiyama would have a choice between either probably 1, 8, 9, 8, and 1, where you'll notice he's now made 2 safe, but Seto has a capture in 4. So you have a nice recapture in 7 potentially there. Or meeting 2 with 7, probably with another 9 facing out, though maybe an 8, saying, you can take one of my cards in 6 and 9, but not both, and I think I'm going to have play elsewhere on the board. But one thing this doesn't do that the last one did is Akiyama doesn't necessarily have great play in 5, and him having good play in 5 was really critical to the last game. I guess the other way to do it would be 8, 8, 2, 9, and 2, force 3, 3, 9A out of Seto's hand. And then if you take that from 9, you have locked that in, so I guess A9, 4, 4. But that's comboable, and that doesn't look super comfortable. Maybe it's fine? Seems dangerous. Maybe it's fine, though, because the combo in 8, you have a combo back in 5. So that would be a complex line. This is if Akiyama is thinking similarly. He went for a different thing. He goes for the adjacent corner. Now that's a curious adjacent corner because he doesn't have a recapture in 8, but he's saying he doesn't need one because anytime Seto goes in 6, he can go 2 and combo back. But now Seto is just leaving these squares open and going for the 3 corners. My instinct, it might be a bad instinct, is 1, 8, 9, 8 in 6. But that doesn't. I wanted 8, 8, 2, 9 and 6, but I didn't want to walk into the combo, so I switched to 1, 8, 9, 8. But 1, 8, 9, 8, if 9, 8, 4, 4 lands an 8, you don't have combo play against it. it's really hard to go 2 because that's always met by 6. I guess if you set up a plus and 5, you can go 2. But it's tough. I don't love the look of 2. One possibly beneficial thing about 2 is maybe you can just control the opponent's cards really well. If you keep 8-8-2-9 in hand, like you could imagine something like, the problem is going in 2, if it doesn't flip 3, doesn't necessarily force 3-3-9-A out of the opponent hand, but it probably should. So I could imagine a line like 4-9-9-4 in 2, 3-3-9-A in 6, Salamander, I think that's Salamander, A9-4-4 in 5, and now either of 9-A-4-4 and 4 or 8 is comboed by 8-8-2-9, but that probably means that he goes 9-8-2-8 and 7 and leaves 9-A-4-4 to combo in 4 or 8 last turn, and that's probably very good. Okay, he goes 6. So Seto's likely going 2. So he does play the move we considered in 6. But now the question is, after 2, does Akiyama have a plan? Because I hadn't worked one out, but that doesn't mean there isn't one. So if A9-4-4 and 5, this is the obvious move to check, you go up 6-4. If 9-8-2-8 in 4, you take back an 8 and you tie, you're fine. If 9-A-4-4 and 4, that combos, but you combo back with 8-8-2-9 and 8, and that's not flipped at the end, you're fine. Okay, so you're safe against 4. If it's met by 9-8-2-8 and 8, that only makes it 5-5, and you can combo back with, you probably shouldn't. So you can play 8-8-2-9 and 4, just take back, go up 6-4, and you tie. If 9-8-2-8 and 8, if 9-8-4-4 and 8, you're down 6-4, but you can combo back with 8-8-2-9 and 7, so you're fine there. So the question is there anything in 7? And it's close to setups both ways, but it doesn't look like it is. So let's do the dumb one first. If 9-A-4-4 and 7, that almost sets up some pluses, but doesn't, you can just play 4, I guess, and you probably win. But 9-8-2-8 and 7 is the one I'm worried about. But you can just play 4 and you're fine. There's no pluses. Yeah, so I think A9-4-4 and 5 should tie, and Akiyama found a good move in 6. It was also where I wanted to go, but I hadn't done the calculation to justify it, so I was kind of scared of it. But it looks like he put in the work that I did not do. Well done to Akiyama. Okay, what else is there? You want to make sure 5 ties. I think Akiyama has surely calculated that faster than I just spoke it out. But you then want to check if there's anything else. So he is presumably also checking 4. I don't think there's any point to checking 8. The big idea of 8 would be you could meet 5 with something really good in 4, but I think you never have that, and they always have like setups against it. Because the card you're landing in 4 is 4-9-9-4, 9-8-2-8 covers that, etc., etc. There is the question, can you go 4? But I don't see what the promise of 4 would be. I don't see why 4 would appeal. So I think we're going to see A9-4-4 and 5, and unless I'm calculating even worse than I did yesterday, should be a tie. I'm going to start inputting the game into my database. Because why not? First game with Seto, 5-5 Akiyama. So far, Akiyama is doing, I think, a very good job of holding off Seto's starters, but I do think these are dangerous starters, and I think Seto cannot be unhappy with how these games are going. It feels to me like after move 3, he gets to put Akiyama through a test every game, and he doesn't really have to think. His moves are kind of free, while Akiyama has to work through his moves. We did check this, right? The idea was 8-8-2-9 and 5. I guess that's actually the only tie, because 4-9-9-4 is samed in 7 and plussed in 4 and 8829. Oh, 88294 should tie as well. That's cute. All right, in 7, not 4. In both 7 and 4. I would probably play it in 7 because I think that's cuter. And then I would be terrified that I'd miss some deranged plus and play it in 4 instead. So I bet we'll see it in 4. But if Akiyama has swag, he lacks swag, just like I do. I always think the more elegant move is the one where there aren't captures. Almost always. If there's a big combo chain, then the more elegant move can be to like take the combo chain and then have them combo back and it all work out. But if you're just trying to do a tie in one of these positions where there's no combo chain, I always think the more elegant move is the non-capture. I think Delhi's on the same page with me. I'm not sure anyone else is. So shame on Akiyama. Terrible work here. Really glad we got 2 open games. Again, I think Seto should be happy that he is getting easy games where Akiyama has to be really careful on move 4. And Akiyama should be happy that he's found pretty comfortable moves on move 4, that I think he's handling those spots really well. But move 4 is a really dangerous pivot in general in Triple Triad because it's a little outside the calculation to the end range. And it's just often a complex setup on board. So I think playing well on move 4-ish is a real differentiator between the great players. And so far Akiyama is doing fantastic there. But again, if you're thinking of like, if they played 10 more games like this, what would happen? I think eventually Akiyama breaks. On the other hand, like, if this is a first turn favored rule set, like, yeah, first turn has some advantage, and Akiyama has done well holding it. But Seto is showing a game plan. I'm curious how well this game plan works on second turn. Because if Akiyama has the corner covered, you no longer can really use this corner. And so I suspect he would use it as a weak corner, and because he's Seto, he'd find some brilliant way to do so. But I do wonder if we're seeing this kind of hand at its best on first turn, and if it will maybe not work as well on second turn. I think I'm just going to make one video for each of these games. We are still tied. These have been much quicker games than I think their previous open ones were, because I think there's basically one tough decision each game that Akiyama is making on move 4, and then he has to calculate out just to make sure which move ties most comfortably on move 6. But we've had 2 of the same structures reached through different move orders, but the same kind of extended L of 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. In some order, we have reached the same structure, the same kind of concluding tie, and it makes sense that they are playing faster. These are 2 of the fastest players. But this actually speaks kind of well to the earlier SPC games, because in no point in these games have I thought I need to pull out the solver. I am just confident there's been nothing missed, and maybe egg on my face coming, but like, it seems to me like these games have been straightforward in a way that the low-level SPC games were not. Both in their matchup and in the Turds Vid matchup, which is the one I got most completely wrong. So, yeah. Is level 9 worse than level 2? Way back in the day, I did a ranking of the 10 levels where I made a thread, and each day I ranked a level starting at my least favorite level. And I believe I went something like the worst is level 2, then level 9. But I don't like the levels this round. And then I think I went 1. And then in some order, 3 and 4. Not sure what would have been my preference those days, partially because I'm not sure what my preference is nowadays. Leaving for the top 5 levels, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. Then I'm quite sure I booted 6 in 5th. Because 5, 7, 8, 10 have, I think, pretty consistently been my favorites. And then it entirely depends how hipster I felt that day. Because some days I think level 8 is the best level, and some days I would have level 8 significantly lower. So like level 8 could be 1st, level 8 could be 4th. I probably had level 10 first because we all like level 10, me certainly included. Not sure how I stood on 5-7 then, not sure how I stood on 5-7 now. But my point is, I had level 2 and level 9 as the worst levels. But watching these games, I do think the level 2 games were fascinating. And these games have been interesting. I think the how to handle a rare starter and how to get initiative off a rare starter and the power that specifically AA rare starters have of can have a card that retakes from both sides because they have the same gap to the wall on both sides, which in a way that you can't have that with an 8/8 starter. You cannot have two low numbers facing an 8/8 starter that combo at both sides. This is only true for AA starters, such that you have really high numbers facing out, has given Seto a very straightforward and dangerous game plan for Akiyama to deal with. So we're seeing interesting game planning from him, which means we're seeing interesting game playing from Akiyama. And so it's not to say this has been like a bad or uninteresting match. It is to say that the level 2 was really good and better. The other thought is what would have happened if these games were closed and Seto starts with the same starter? You can't really leave it alone if you're Akiyama, so you do have to get rid of it in similar ways, but it's going to be very hard to get rid of it in precise ways. But there's another thought. If Seto is reliably using the AA corner as his starter and an XX A9 card as his recapturer, is he switching up the other cards in their hand so that this is unpredictable? I think basically yes, but you can put him on either A9XXs or 988s. The problem is, between those basically hit every major number, so it doesn't mean I know I'm safe if I stick out a 9 or a 10 because the 9844 cannot be aligned to take it because the 9818 certainly can be aligned to take it in those spots. So I think that makes it hard to play against. Yeah, I think Seto should be in good shape if he gets a closed first turn with these hands. I think this will be very dangerous. I don't know. There's not a clear path to reading what to do from Akiyama's perspective, at least to my eyes. So if he gets that situation and holds that, that will be really cool. On the other hand, we haven't seen Akiyama get first turn at all. We don't know what that kind of game would look like. As I said, I am somewhat more skeptical of the rare on second turn because Akiyama has committed to having double numbers in every direction, so he will have it covered, and Seto will know he has it covered, so how will Seto find a use for it despite that? And of course, if Akiyama gets first turn closed, we also have no idea what that will look like. Alright, let's end this video, and I will have a new video when we come back for the third game of this open-closed. We are going the distance in this match, and playing at a very high level.